Thank you for listening to the ESBC Motivational Podcast, where in this podcast, my wife's a psychotherapist, but all of us need basic mental health skills to help those around us and help ourselves. And one of the mental health tricks that I've used throughout the years is reading a biography or sitting down with somebody around you that's successful, that's positive, that has great things going moving forward. And we're very lucky, privileged, and good to have a successful actress who's conquering Hollywood, who's worked for the greatest, Sarah Lynn Robinson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And a million girls would kill for your career. What's the main ingredient that you've done it? I know you started at the musical theater in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Roosevelt University. How have you? We'll go. We'll give people the end first, and then we'll go backwards. But looking at it, all these great auditions you've been in, all that you've won, you're a winner, right? When you look at your background, Sarah Lynn Robinson wins. And she wins consistently. Looking back, how have you done it? What have been the main ingredients?
I mean, this is not an easy career path. I had a lot of people tell me when I was starting out, if there's anything else you could or would want to do that instead.
Right.
So I think that's good advice. But I think for me, the secret has been not giving up on myself.
Right.
The first few years I was out here, I really wasn't doing much of anything. It was really hard. And I've worked a lot of really shitty menial jobs.
Right.
And and I think those at the time, maybe I couldn't make sense of it, but they have become the building blocks that have gotten me where I am today and have made me who I am today. So it's important, but also important to know your worth and not stick around for just any job. But if you want it, especially in LA, in Hollywood, to just stick it out. Because I think that's half the battle, is just staying here and making yourself available.
Right. They say the winners between losers is that the losers quit 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you had a great start.
Yeah. My background is mostly in theater, so everything else that I've done is newer, and I've only been here actually 4 years. But
that's a long time, right? That's what it takes people to get. Usually people come here 6 months and leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and I mean that's what I mean. Like if you can have that stick-to-itiveness, eventually people are going to take a chance on you. But I think a lot of people don't stick around to give themselves that opportunity.
So how was Roosevelt University like? How was that like from you? And what did you take from you that you use today?
Yeah, that was a great experience. I met some of people who are still my best friends today. So it was amazing. I moved there, moved to downtown Chicago at 17 years old.
Wow.
It was an incredible, so it was definitely culture shock, coming from the suburbs of Denver to, downtown Chicago. But it was amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I will say I definitely would have done some things differently.
All of us would when we're 17 or 18.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I can't hold that against myself.
Right.
But yeah, it was an amazing place.
Well, the fact that you're alive, you went to downtown Chicago. There's like 200 murders there. a week.
People always say that. I have felt far more unsafe in LA than I ever did in Chicago.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't grow up in Chicago, but
Right.
it feels like my home. I moved here from Chicago. I spent 8 years there. I never had, and I lived all over. I lived in really safe family neighborhoods. I lived in some really sketchy neighborhoods. I was
Right.
across from a methadone clinic for a year.
Oh wow.
I was in a sketchier part of Uptown, but I never felt unsafe there. Everyone is just so warm and so willing to help you out. That has not always been my experience in LA.
Right.
So I really, really love Chicago and my time there. And I would tell anyone starting out, if you don't feel quite ready to go to New York or LA, I think Chicago is a great place to start, especially if you want to explore comedy.
Yeah, and Chicago in a lot of ways reminds me of Boston. Boston, when I
Hmm.
lived there, it's a big city. You get
Hmm.
everything you want in a big city, but it kind of felt like it had a small town vibe, had a small
Yeah.
town thing to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's just that Midwestern
Right.
charm. Yeah,
And then a
I
lot
really
of
liked that.
Midwestern people go that are cool. They're from a farm or from a little
Hmm.
town. They all move to Chicago because there's no jobs in the middle of
Right.
Iowa or Wisconsin or
Right.
anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just such a warm and friendly and open-minded place. I really loved, even more so than my college, I really loved my time in Chicago, and still say that it's my home, and I still try to go back once a year or so.
And one thing that always fascinates me, and I love, because my dad's Pentecostal preacher, so is my sister, and
Oh.
all, so I always thought it was interesting, the Pentecostal church, and then people that come from there, like Obama, who's a great performer,
Mhm.
Elvis Presley, great
Mhm.
performer. A lot of great performers come from the Pentecostal church, and the
Mhm.
Pentecostal church is based on improv. So that really intrigues me about your background, that you're a graduate of Second City.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. The tie into the church. I hadn't really thought about that
Right.
as having
But
like an
Second
improv
City,
background. But
big pipeline to Saturday Night Live,
yeah,
big pipeline
yeah,
to the Comedy
absolutely.
Store. We had
Mhm.
Jeff Flight. He's also Second City comedy guy. He
Yeah.
writes for late night TV
Mhm.
because it's that magic, that spark
Yeah.
of having that balance where you're prepared, you've read, but you're not highly scripted, right? It's like when Trump
Mhm.
gets on the teleprompter, he's not himself to his base the way he is
Right.
when he's at living.
Right, right. Yeah, that was amazing time. I spent 2 years there, writing and performing, and, yeah, that was really, I kind of call that my second, formal, college education. It felt like getting
Right.
a second degree, and, similarly, I'm still in touch with everyone who was in my little graduating class, and
Oh,
you
nice.
go through so much together. Yeah, so we're really tight, and a couple of us are out here, writing or working, various jobs out here. So yeah, I would recommend that to anyone, even just if you're new to the city and you're trying to put down roots. Yeah, and it was great. It looks great on a resume, and it's good for networking too. I
Right.
did find it interesting, however, that it doesn't really carry the same clout in LA as it did in Chicago.
Got it.
I think, yeah, for whatever reason, Second City Hollywood doesn't really translate. And then we
Even
also
though you
had
had
improv.
iconic people like Steve Martin, people like that who've done
Yeah,
great movies in LA that are Second City,
yeah,
like Dan Aykroyd, who lives in
yeah,
Temecula, not too far
absolutely.
from here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a legacy, and it's such a
Right.
storied place. But I don't think people attach that to Second City Hollywood. They think of that as Chicago. So it's when I say I did Second City, I feel like I don't know. It doesn't really carry. Whereas in Chicago, that was, I
Right.
think, like the place to be, of the three big improv theaters that we had. So
Right.
that's interesting, but it was a great experience.
Yeah, because it's interesting, Chicago to LA, then LA to New York. Second City is more of a Chicago to New York, maybe
Hmm.
back to LA, because you
Yeah.
look at the people from Friends, you know, they've had improv theaters in Chicago. The one guy owns a improv theater in Chicago, and it's from Second City. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's
Hmm.
interesting. But
Yeah.
in the videos I've seen of you, you have that spark. I don't know. I saw one video where you're just like, boom, Tallahassee. And I was like, man, boom, that spark, from improv and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would
talent for that.
recommend it to anyone, even if you don't want to be on stage or you don't want, I never really wanted to do comedy. I was a, theater and musical theater girl. And I really just fell into it. I started doing, I did a comedic musical actually about the 2011 NBA lockout.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, written by a good friend of mine. So it was so funny and it was so well written, and
Right.
it was like such a cool like niche audience that we had.
Right.
But it was like half comedians and half, true theater people who had grown
Right.
up, knew every word to Les Mis, whatever. And that's the kind of, person and kid that I had been. So we had this really cool mix, and I hadn't really worked with comedians before. All of my friends were like true theater people from the time that we were young. So yeah, we all got really tight, and a bunch of them had come through. The three big ones are Improv Olympic, which has just recently shut down actually because of COVID, but
Right.
and then Second City, and then Annoyance. Those were the three big ones in Chicago, and so many people had been through one or more of their programs. So I auditioned kind of on a whim, not thinking I would get in, and somehow I did. And then you have to audition a second time, and somehow I made it through that too. And yeah, I wound up kind of focusing my career toward that. And then it also really gave me I've always loved writing, but it gave me kind of streamlined my love of comedic writing as well. So that was really interesting. But I would recommend it for anyone, even if you don't have an interest in that background at all. I think it's good. It's just a good skill set to have.
So you're a well-rounded actress. So you can do like Shakespeare, you can do period pieces, you can do comedy. You also write as well. Man,
Yeah.
you have so much talent. It's ridiculous.
That's very kind. I don't know about that. But I've definitely
do,
tried
though.
my hand.
You meet a lot
That's
of
very
people, man,
sweet.
through life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You meet a lot of contenders and pretenders, and you get an ear for somebody who's legit in the real deal. And
Yeah.
you're definitely that, 100%.
Thank you.
I, for
Very
one,
much
will not
appreciated.
let you sell yourself short at all, man.
Thank you.
Extremely
I appreciate that.
talented. And we established yesterday that you would not get offended if I said you were also you're talented, you're intelligent, and also you're very beautiful. But
I guess you're trying to say I'm the whole package, and I'm not going to disagree with you.
That's not, man. Look, that's why we're astounded, and we feel very lucky and good, really, too, because we notice talent.
Yeah.
That you're here with us in full force on our podcast.
Yeah.
As we skyrocket all the way to number one. Look out, Joe Rogan. No, we're kind of different. We'll be parallel.
Sure. Yeah.
We can keep our 100 million. So you go from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
What was next after you graduated from? And it's a great background, but it wasn't given to you. Nobody gave you anything. You went in and you worked. And and that's been a theme of the motivational podcast we have, is we've been lucky to have mentally strong people. Much as yourself, we've had professional athletes who went through setbacks. This guy, they wouldn't let him on a junior college basketball team, and he ends up and then in the NFL and playing for 4 years and getting a pension in the NFL. It's less than 1% of 1% get to be in the NFL. So he showed incredible mental strength to get through that. And you've shown an enormous amount of mental strength to be able to go through all those auditions early in your career. You won those auditions, and you won yourself a great education. And you're in Chicago, and you go to where?
So I was in Chicago. I finished Second City. I did comedy for I was at Second City for 2 years, and then I did comedy after that for a year. I was performing improv all over and doing some writing. And I was in a just funny looking back now because you couldn't pay me to do this now.
Right.
It sounds impossible.
Right.
But I was in a touring music improv group.
Got
So
it.
we would do fully improvised musicals, and we actually went and performed in New York. So that was really fun. Again, looking back, if you showed me video footage, I wouldn't believe that was me because I don't know how
Right.
came up with shit to say. But
Right.
yeah, it was really, at the time, it was really fun. And then I wound up getting a tour. I booked a national tour in Canada and the US of a musical, and I had to kind of decide, do I want to roll the dice and take a chance on this and pretty much give up my life in Chicago, or do I want to really put roots down here? So yeah, I was 24, had been there for 7, almost 8 years at that point. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try this. So I toured for a long time with that. We went all over the US and Canada. And that was amazing and really rewarding. And that was the first time that I was living off of what I was making from my art, which was an incredibly,
Nobody ever gets to do that.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I didn't think I would ever be that fortunate. So that was an incredibly rewarding feeling.
A million girls would kill for that.
Yeah. I mean, truly, I would have if I had seen that when I was younger.
Right.
So yeah, that was an amazing experience. And then my contract ended, and I had already, given up my day job and my apartment and my, pretty much my life in Chicago. My
A
stuff
lot of
was in storage.
mental strength to do that.
Yeah, it was
And
tough.
believe
Yeah,
and you bet on yourself, right? Which is probably the best bet anybody can do.
Now looking back, I can say that yes, it was. At the time, it didn't feel as as smart, but yeah. So I had always wanted to come out here, and I kind of felt like I already had one foot out of Chicago, so I decided to go for it, and here I am, little over 4 years later.
Yeah, no, and you've had an amazing career here in LA. One that we mentioned last night, we were joking around about it. For a lot of us guys, we grew up watching. I put the mute off when ESPN comes on. I put it on mute because you don't want to clutter your mind as you're wagering on games, because you want to get to the truth, right? But I've never really seen this guy talk, but I've heard him, right? And he got a $38 million contract with Spotify, and that's Bill Simmons. So that puts you with most guys that are ESPN watchers. That puts you in the Hall of Fame. The fact that you work with Bill Simmons, and you have a reoccurring role, right? And to this day, you maintain contact, and you're a great networker, and you're still in contact with them. So how's that whole experience working with Bill Simmons and all those people, Disney, ESPN?
The Ringer, that has been my favorite gig since being in LA. They are such amazing people, and Bill is one of the nicest people it's ever been my fortune to work with. Yeah.
Sure.
He has, just for someone who has that much clout and success, he's so kind and so down to earth. We shot a short in his house where I was playing Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers.
That's crazy.
And
that puts you in the Hall of Fame too, yeah.
And he just, could not have been more welcoming or just down to earth. So that it's been, and just everyone there is just such a pleasure to work with. So I actually got that gig because of my friend Jason, who wrote that basketball musical years ago. He wound up getting scouted by the Ringer, came out here to work, and then he moved out shortly after I did, maybe a month or two after I did. So he's brought me on for a lot of projects. I was just on I think it's their most popular podcast, if not one of their most popular podcasts, NBA Desktop with Jason Concepcion.
Okay.
I've been on a few times, and we just maybe 3 weeks ago now did a full Disney musical
Nice.
about the NBA bubble and reopening Disney World. And yeah, it's just always such a great time. They're brilliant people. They're really fun to work with, and everyone's so nice.
That is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And something that I notice, right? Because sometimes you'll notice and somebody will have one, but you have a lot of reoccurring things. That's why I call you a
Yeah.
winner. You go in and you win auditions, which is impossible that a million girls would wish they would have the success you have as far
Yeah.
as auditions are concerned. I mean, from
Mhm.
Hydroxycut to the Steve Harvey show. You were featured.
Yeah,
What did you do there?
that was really fun. I was on an episode. I did a segment for him. They had people bring in questions, and you got to kind of chat and like improvise with Steve and ask his advice. So I brought in some dating questions, for young
Right.
women, and asked his advice on that. And it was really fun. He was very funny and off the cuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you hosted Find My First Love. That's another edition you
I
won.
did. Yeah, that was a crazy experience. So you can watch that on Amazon Prime or on FYI.
Okay.
If anyone's sorry for the shameless plug, if anyone's interested.
No, anytime,
Um,
man. This is your show.
Okay. But yeah, that was really crazy. So this was also right before I was leaving. So it was kind of the perfect time to embark upon this journey. But I had this
Right.
woman reach out to me and ask if I was interested in being kind of their bachelorette
Got it.
for this like reality love show.
Right.
So she asked me if there was anyone in my past that I would want to reconnect with whom I had lost touch.
Right.
And I said, yes, actually, there was this Australian bartender that I was dating when I was fresh out of college. So this would have been, 3 years ago. And we fell out of touch, and I haven't been able to find him on Facebook or Instagram or anything. And I would love to reconnect. So I kind of just threw that out thinking like, oh, they have, a million people for this. They don't need my story. And they thought it was so fascinating, and they were able to find him, and they took my story. And I got paid more than I've ever gotten paid for a gig before.
Right.
To travel all over the world and find this guy. It was really
Oh, that sounds
a
interesting.
weird, incredible experience. Yeah, a lot of tears, a lot of self exploration, a lot
Right.
of sleepless nights and journaling. But it was really fun and very rewarding.
No, it's crazy. No, I working late nights, right? You listen to classical music. I do, and they talk about these different stories. And there was one of the greatest composers, poets of all times, along those lines. And then my wife was telling me that story just the other day, because she had discovered the story, and it's about this guy who was falsely put in an insane asylum, and he remembers his past love, and after years of not seeing each other, he figured out where her house was, and he walks like for almost a 2-year period and finds out where she lived, and because he always remembered her from her past, and she had just passed away when he got there.
Oh.
So the tale of lost love never ends, right? And they made a whole
Yeah.
TV show out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So did you ever
Thankfully, it
find a
didn't
guy,
end
or
like
what
that.
happened?
We did find him. So it started in Chicago, where I was at the time. We flew to LA, to Sydney, to Brisbane in Australia, back to Sydney, to London, to Oslo, Norway, to Trondheim, Norway. And that's eventually, I'm sorry, we were in Malaysia at one point too, in between there, somewhere in there. And then we went to Kuala Lumpur. And then, so we finally found him in Trondheim, Norway. He was in grad school. So they had these, they called them hackers on the show, but they had like researchers basically figuring out where he was. And they were only, maybe a step ahead of me and the producer. And it was just me and, and a producer who was not that much older than I was, flying all over the world, just the two of us. And she was, filming everything. So it was quite a journey, but they did find him. We reunited, and he wound up having a girlfriend.
Oh,
So,
of course.
maybe I shouldn't have given the spoiler away, but yeah, that was the
Well,
big.
of course, that always happens, right?
Of course. I don't know
Like
what
the
I
story I
foreshadowed,
just told
but
you, the girl was dead, right? It's not.
of course, there's
Those never
there's
end
always a
good.
twist like that.
Yes.
Right. But it was incredible. And we spent some time together as friends, and we got our kind of happy ending because we were reunited. Yeah, it was really, and just such an amazing experience, you know, love aside.
Right. No, you get to travel the world, and you've done a lot
Right.
of traveling, man. You've been everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
A million girls would kill to travel as much as
Maybe
as
that
you've
should be
done.
the title. You were asking me for title ideas. It feels like you keep
Yes, I'm
circling
going to
back
change
to
the
that.
title to that. A million girls would kill for the career that Sarah Lynn Robinson had. But
I don't know about that.
nothing just happens, right? It's your ability to process information very quickly, which, man, it's such a blessing that you have that. You have that intelligence and that speed in your brain to be able to process information quickly. That's why you were so good at improv. You thought of shit to say, as you would say, right? So that you have an incredible brain. You know that
Thank you.
again, a million girls would kill to have your brain. You're mentally tough, and you're tough, period, but mentally tough, right? Downtown Chicago, all these
Yeah.
auditions, you win. You're a winner. You're perseverance. You can break down information in situations quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, question I have two questions. Number one, how have you handled? And it's really hit me hard recently with people that we brought on, in business and talked to in business, and things that have happened in the news recently. Because you think with the Harvey Weinstein situation, and the worst one was Matt Lauer. And the reason it was worse is because I wouldn't have let him get away with it. And there's a lot of guys who have not let him get away. I don't care who he is, right? Where he had a lock on his office door where you can't leave. I mean, that's insane.
From under his desk, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
it's
Just
really
crazy
wild.
stuff, right? So it wasn't just him, because he can do whatever he wants. It's the people around him that allowed him to,
who are complicit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, to get this behavior. So have you been in a situation like that? And the other question I have is, what would the Sarah Lynn Robinson now tell the Sarah Lynn Robinson 10 years ago, when she was a younger girl 10 years ago? What advice would you give her?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have been in a situation like that, unfortunately. I won't go so far as to say that it was quite as bad as a Matt Lauer or Harvey Weinstein situation.
Right.
But it was an older, more experienced male director,
right.
Who was capitalizing on my inexperience.
Right.
And I think this is what I always tell younger women that I'm, talking to at auditions or sets, or, through any sort of like mentoring group. I trust your intuition, because something felt off from the minute that we first connected. And I listened to him make me these grandiose promises, thinking, well, he's lived in LA, he's directed, an award-winning film. I have to listen to him. This is my ticket in, and this is my big break. And I really attached myself to that notion that all it takes is, one overnight success, as you say.
Right.
When that doesn't really exist, and there are always going to be stepping stones, and you don't have to sacrifice your self-worth or self-confidence or safety to get where you want to go. If some asshole is offering you a movie in exchange for whatever he may be asking you for, someone else is going to offer it to you because of your talent and not ask for anything in exchange. So that's especially young women, I would just caution them to stick with their gut. I was lucky enough that I eventually hit a wall with him and got myself out of the situation. But I mean,
You're tough. You're mentally tough, persevere woman. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know, you got out of that situation.
Thank you. Yeah, but it was tough. You know, I was 21. I had just graduated college. I had no idea what I was doing, and because my background was in theater, and this was the first person offering me a paid professional gig on a film set. Of course, I thought, you know, he said he was going to move me out here, and of course, I thought that was my big break. But you know, from the beginning, and it went on for months, our meetings, and he made me audition and send him a million tapes. And we even shot a few days, before things eventually fell apart. And I had to, you know, take myself out of the project, but things never felt right. And I never felt comfortable being alone with him. And I told myself that this is what you have to do if you want to get ahead in this business. And that's absolutely not true. That's absolutely not true. Yeah. So it didn't, you know, I am so thankful that it didn't go as far as, you know, as it sounds like it unfortunately went for some of these other victims. But yeah, it was a really hard time. And he followed me for years after, virtually, not in person.
We'll go get him if he does. You're part of the family.
I'll let you know. You'll be the first.
The band of brothers. You got a band of brothers now that they're not the type of people you really want to mess with, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a really a scary experience. But I'm thankful. You know, now 8 years later, I'm thankful to have had that, because it taught me a lot. And now, you know, the first time something feels off, I'm out of there, because nothing will ever be worth it. If that's how it's making you feel, that's not your break.
No, absolutely. Especially somebody as tough and as intelligent and as savvy as you are. So we're glad you got out of that situation. It's a totally different thing going on. And what would you tell your younger self? What was the best bit of advice? Other than that was great. That's great stuff. That we'll make sure a young girl.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope.
Listen to.
I hope that helps someone else out there.
It will.
You know, fake it till you make it. That's such cliche advice, but that's been, the older I've gotten, the more I've relied on that. And I still find myself almost on a daily basis telling myself that if I, you know, am entering into a space where I just feel like I'm ill prepared or ill equipped, or, you know, again, I think especially with women, I may show up to a job interview that I'm more qualified for than every other guy in the room. And I'm just inherently me as a person, but I think also, you know, a lot of us as women trying to get a leg up in a male dominated industry, we will automatically put ourselves below everyone else and may wind up not getting the job because of that. So I think you just have to go in. I won't share this because it's very inappropriate, but it's very funny. But I had a female theater teacher tell me something my freshman year of college that has really stuck with me. And I shouldn't repeat it, but it basically you have to walk into every room and think that they want to buy what you're selling, whether you believe it or not. If you can make them believe it, then, you know, that's where it starts. I think,
and there's a great book by Orrin Clack, and it's called Pitch Anything. And one way to say what you're saying is that never ever, I don't care who you are, put yourself in a beta position. There's always an alpha and there's always a beta. So wherever you're at, you better be alpha. Anybody listening to the podcast, watching the stream, right? You better be alpha. Why not? If there's going to be an alpha and a beta, or if you're in a position like, an audition, or what you're saying, put yourself in the alpha position. Never put yourself in the beta position. for example, if people are doing sales, you go to an office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the person you're supposed to meet is late, walk out and tell them, hey, when you know when to show up on time, come get me. And you end up,
Yeah.
and these people end up chasing you. And so you're
Right.
100% right about that.
Yeah.
You're you're the hammer, they're the nail, you're the prize.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, and again, you don't have to believe it, but if you can try to keep that in mind, it's
Right.
really, that's going to be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
especially in the entertainment industry because it is such a competitive field. And, actors may be a little more even, but every time I walk into any sort of casting space or production office, it's definitely male and white dominated, unfortunately. So yeah, I think as we make, I'm sorry, my dog is barking.
No, we love
As
them.
we make as we make strides, to change that, things are happening, but slowly. So I think everyone, the diversity, women and people of color, we need to walk in like we deserve these jobs when we may not always feel that we do, for whatever systemic reason.
Right. And we'll close with that because I think that's another aspect that I've been sleeping on. And I did not, and I think Matt Bird, who's on our Thursday podcast from Florida, he's clued me in on a lot that I thought that we had progressed and we hadn't progressed. We haven't progressed either in female equality issues. I did do a great conference that I have on YouTube, and I'll give you a few of the clips from it. And we had very successful, powerful women give really good, really good advice. However, and you can speak to this, I have a client who, in the city she's in, she was the first female partner of a law firm in that city. And she comes to me and says, well, I'm in this meeting and this guy's telling me to shut up. And I'm like, Teresa, I'm like, wait a second. You graduated cum laude from your university. You are a prominent attorney. You have a career of 30 years. You've only lost one case. You're a partner at this firm. You make more money than this firm. How in the, I'm like, now you know me. Under no circumstances, you know me now, Sarah Lynn Robinson. Under no circumstances is a man in a professional setting going to tell you to shut up. Crazy.
Yeah.
You can't.
But it's,
to your point, you can't. And here's me on my soapbox, and I really firmly believe this. You cannot. I don't care who you are, where you are, especially somebody like you, who's as talented, as intelligent, as mentally tough as you are. Under no circumstances do you allow a man to talk over you or to tell you to shut up in a meeting.
Yeah. And I think, every woman that I have talked to has, 5, 10, 15 stories like that. I had a boss that used to snap at me if he needed my attention. Yeah. I mean, it's terrible. And I think
I'm talking about. I got your back.
Thank you. Yeah, and these are especially problems within the entertainment industry. I'm kind of, I'm being very insular when I'm talking about this, but it's really, this, expands into every workplace as far as, women and minorities are concerned. Absolutely. So as far as we've come, we have a lot farther to go.
Crazy. And on this podcast, we'll do our part to end that. Diverse firms make 45% more cash flow, according to studies done by Harvard and Wharton. And we have a very, very, very diverse podcast. So any final words, Sarah Lynn Robinson? Thank you so much for joining us. That's an amazing career. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing and inspiring us. I'm inspired now. I got a lot more energy listening to you. what you've been through and what you've been able to overcome, and you
Yeah.
constantly winning auditions and going all over the world. Like I said, a million girls would kill for your background and your career. What are final
Thank
thoughts?
you. I just want to say, hang in there. Times are really tough right now with everything going on in the world and in our country, and with COVID. Yeah, hang in there. And as far as the entertainment industry is concerned, it will come back. It may be slow, but it will come back. So keep doing your art, keep being creative, and keep making things. And then, when things open back up, we need your voice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. And Sarah Lynn Robinson embodies this. What Winston Churchill said as he got us through World War II, and she truly believes it, and we all truly believe it. We don't just talk the talk; we walk the walk. Seeing is believing, and we give you results. And Winston Churchill said, "You make a living from your labor, but you make a life from what you give." Thank you for listening to the ESBC Podcast Network and our motivational podcast.